This is Lake Mead, and on a day like this, it looks like the best possible place to spend a weekend. But that could be a fatal mistake. Because Lake Mead has the highest death toll of any national park in the United States, between 2007 and 2024, 317 people lost their lives here, nearly 50% more than the next national park, and it's a number that is climbing every year. And the most worrying thing is, many of the biggest dangers here, you can't even see. So what is actually happening out there? And why does a place this deadly feel so safe? Let's find out. To understand why Lake Mead claims the lives it does, you need to understand where many of its visitors come from. The Las Vegas Strip sits 30 minutes to the west, and every summer, a portion of its 40 million annual tourists make the drive out to the lake. They arrive on a Friday afternoon, dehydrated from the casino floor, often intoxicated, and look at that blue water like it's the answer to every problem they have. On busy holiday weekends here, more than 140,000 people can descend on the national park in a single 48-hour period. And waiting for them is a lake that covers 247 square miles, with 750 miles of shoreline, 0 lifeguards, and roughly 26 rangers responsible for 1.5 million acres across 2 states. When you break it down, there are 4 key dangers you should be aware of, all of which are capable of catching even the most cautious visitors off guard. Danger number 1, poisoning. Now, this one isn't a big killer, but poisoning has claimed 4 lives at Lake Mead in the last decade, and many visitors walk straight past potentially deadly contaminants without so much as registering them as a threat. Blue-green algae, specifically a bacteria called microcystis, blooms in the warmer shallows throughout the summer months. It looks like a greenish film on the surface. It doesn't look like anything more than a gross swim, but it produces toxins harmful to the liver and other organs if ingested. Those toxins are released the moment the bloom is disturbed. Exactly what happens when a child runs into the shallows, or a dog goes in after a thrown stick. Children and pets are at the highest risk from this one. But there is another threat here, and it has a near 100% fatality rate. Naegleria fowleri is an amoeba that enters through the nose and migrates to the brain, triggering a condition called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Early symptoms like headache, fever, nausea are easy to dismiss. Within days, they progress to seizures and coma. Death typically follows within 5 days of onset, and there is no reliably effective treatment. The amoeba has been confirmed in the hot springs below Hoover Dam. In 2022, a Nevada teenager was exposed in the Kingman Wash area of the Colorado River. He did not survive. Fortunately, infection is almost entirely preventable. It cannot reach the brain unless water is forced into the nasal passage during a jump or a dive, and nose plugs eliminate the route entirely. Danger number 2, heat. Perhaps the most unassuming danger that lurks at Lake Mead is the heat. Keelani Giron was 18 years old when she drove out to Gold Strike Canyon in July of 2014 with a friend. It was a 103-degree day, and fatally, they only had 1 water bottle between them. The trail down to the natural hot springs is easy, which is part of the problem. It drops smoothly through a narrow slot canyon, with the rock walls radiating heat from every direction. Once you reach the bottom, the reward is beautiful. Pools of water, naturally heated to 123 degrees, set against ancient red stone. Keelani and her friend did what everyone does. They soaked. But what they did not account for was what an hour in water that hot does to a body before it has to climb back out. With core temperature already elevated and muscles already fatigued, the climb back out becomes treacherous, even for young, healthy individuals. The return journey is steep, fully exposed, with no shade or water sources. Keelani collapsed near the end of the return climb. She did not survive. But hers is not an outlier case. Heat is a consistent and underreported contributor to Lake Mead's death toll, and Gold Strike Canyon is where it concentrates most reliably. Rangers have described it as one of the most predictably dangerous trails in the entire recreation area. Not because it is technically difficult, but because nothing about it looks treacherous until it is too late. Danger number 3, motor vehicles. The second biggest killer at the national park isn't a natural danger, but rather a risk of our own making. 66 people died in motor vehicle crashes at Lake Mead between 2007 and 2024. North Shore Road is a particular problem, winding and fast, with sharp curves, limited sight lines, and visitors behind the wheel who are sleep deprived, sometimes impaired, navigating unfamiliar terrain, while the scenery keeps pulling their eyes off the road. The NPS runs targeted DUI checkpoints at the park's main access points, which tells you something about the consistency of what they find. But on the water, it is arguably worse. No boating license is required to operate a vessel on Lake Mead. Nevada has the 9th highest boating fatality rate in the nation, and alcohol moves through the incident reports like a recurring theme. On the 12th of August, 2023, Paul Robinson steered a boat into another vessel at Colville Bay while under the influence, killing Terry Ferris and Stacia Gardner. Vessel-related deaths like this claimed 27 lives between 2007 and 2024. Add 66 more from the roads, and motor vehicles become a significant killer here. And still, none of it comes close to the number that defines Lake Mead above everything else. Danger number 4, drowning. By far, the biggest risk here is the water. Lake Mead holds the grim distinction of leading the entire national park system in total drowning deaths. Roughly 300 lives have been lost to the water since the lake was first filled in the 1930s, with an average of 6 or 7 drowning incidents occurring every year. On the 20th of July, 2014, Jorge Luna was out on the Colorado River section of the park with his girlfriend and her family. Jorge jumped in, and despite being a strong swimmer, he died within a matter of minutes in front of his horrified partner and her family. But stories like this play out time and time again at Lake Mead. The reason for tragic incidents like Jorge's is the result of the cold shock phenomenon. Lake Mead's surface reaches around 80 degrees in summer, warm enough that stepping in feels perfectly consistent with the 100-degree air. But below the surface, temperatures drop hard and fast. The Colorado River feeds the lake from below Hoover Dam at below 60 degrees, even in peak summer. That gap, encountered the instant a person enters the water from a hot boat deck, triggers a cold shock response, an involuntary gasp, hyperventilation, and muscle failure that can set in within the first few seconds. But cold shock isn't the only danger hiding in these waters. Far from it. Monsoon winds here build without warning and have been recorded generating waves 8 to 10 feet tall in conditions that looked calm an hour earlier. When a person jumps off a boat for a quick swim and a gust moves the boat, the gap between them and safety can widen faster than any swimmer can close it. And from the shore, those same gusts create their own fatal situations. For years, wind was dragging people on inflatables from the safe shallows out into open water. 9 deaths were directly linked to incidents like this over a 7-year period. In May of 2021, a 6-year-old Stacy Quinchis-Namak was sharing a pool float near the shoreline when 30-mile-per-hour gusts carried her and a friend out into the lake. Her friend, who stayed on the float, was rescued. But Stacy attempted to swim back to the shore. She didn't make it. Just months after Stacy's death, the park banned all inflatable pool toys, beach balls, noodles, and water wings. And when something does go wrong out here, rescue becomes a long shot. Lake Mead covers 247 square miles. There are 0 lifeguards and 26 rangers responsible for 1.5 million acres across 2 states. So remember, the water here, like anywhere, should always be respected. 110 drowning deaths since 2007, more than double the next highest park in the country. Now, before I put you off ever visiting Lake Mead, some of the numbers we've discussed here need some context. Between 5 and 8 million people visit Lake Mead every year, and the overwhelming majority of them go home without incident. Measured by deaths per million visitors, the park sits around 17th in the national system. By individual risk, Lake Mead is not the most dangerous place you could spend a weekend outdoors. What makes the numbers worth paying attention to is where they are heading. 2023 was the deadliest year on record, with 29 deaths, while 2024 was tracking ahead of that pace before summer was half over. And to make matters worse, in February of 2025, 13 rangers, engineers, and ecologists were cut from the park as part of federal workforce reductions, reducing the already thin safety net. Lake Mead is not indiscriminately dangerous. It is specifically dangerous to people who arrive without understanding what they are getting into, and it tends to punish a very short list of mistakes with a finality that leaves no room for second chances. So if you're out on the water, wear a life jacket, check the weather before you leave the dock, because monsoon winds here build faster than any boat can outrun them. And if you are hiking to the hot springs, carry more water than feels necessary. Avoid long treks in summer heat, and turn back before you feel like you need to. Lake Mead does not have to be a death trap. It just needs visitors to respect it and be aware of what can happen when they don't.